My husband, 29 male, and I, 28 female, have lived here for 5 years, ever since we got married. Our previous neighbors were an adorable couple in their 60s to 70s. We had a fairly good relationship, and I was quite sad when they left. This year I gave birth to my son. When my new neighbors, let's call them Paul and Anna, moved in, I was 2 months pregnant. We weren't friends, but we would say hi to each other here and there. I sunbathe every day. It's something I've been doing since childhood. I was a very anemic kid, and my mom made me do it to help with my anemia. I don't even know if it works, but it's a habit that helps me start my day. This was not a problem until my pregnancy became apparent. The left side of the yard has 2 kinds of fences, one low that used to have a hedge on the neighbor side that they cut off, and one taller in the rest of the backyard. It's hard to see it from the ground, but they can still see our whole yard and part of our main floor from the second floor. When I was 5 months pregnant, Paul told my husband that my sunbathing was making them uncomfortable. I sunbathe in shorts and tank tops, nothing out of the ordinary. I just ignored them and kept my routine. The following month he did it again. Until my 8th month, I was back from a walk with my husband, and Anna was in front of the house. Once she saw me, she stormed inside and slammed the door. The following day, Paul came to our house and told us that they had fertility problems, and seeing me pregnant was making her heavily uncomfortable, and I was an insensitive witch. Currently, I'm working from home, and the baby is close to me in a playpen in the living room, and we have another one in the backyard on the terrace, so I can have him close when gardening or just playing with him. Well, I made his wife uncomfortable again yesterday. I was in the living room playing with the baby when he knocked. He asked me to move from the living room because his wife could see me from their balcony. I told him to tell her to look in the other direction and leave me alone. Today, my husband and I were grilling some meat in the backyard. The baby was hungry, so I started to breastfeed. When I looked at their house, Anna was on the balcony. She went in, and a few minutes later, Paul was at our door again. I gave my son to my husband, and I answered the door. Paul went off on me for breastfeeding in public, again, my fenced yard, and being inconsiderate. When he finished, I told him to leave us alone, not to knock on my door again, and if his wife is so upset over seeing a baby, she needs therapy and not him harassing my family, and I will do everything I want in my own home. At the time, I felt justified, but I was venting with my mom and she told me I was wrong, and I couldn't understand because I never suffered from infertility, and I needed to apologize. So, am I the idiot? Not the idiot. That's insane. And to say you can't feed your baby? Ugh. This isn't your problem. It sucks for them, but are you really going to stop being a mom at certain viewpoints because they can't have a baby? She needs to stop looking at your home. That's it. And that's all. Exactly. And I wouldn't open my door to either of those crazies without my phone's camera recording, because what they are doing is harassment, and who knows what they are capable of. Imagine having the audacity or entitlement to tell someone they can't breastfeed in their own yard or sit their baby by the window in their own house, then have a lawyer serve them with a cease and desist order. How dare you, checks notes, start a family and, double checks notes, live in your family home. I'm sorry, what? This woman is openly watching you and your family in your own home and expects you to just not be a parent in your own home because she is a peeping effing Tom and sends her husband to harass you? And your mother wants you to apologize? I'm flabbergasted. This is disgusting. Why is she watching you so hard? What would she like you to do? Drop the baby every time you walk into her point of view? Why is she staring into your home? Not even your darn yard, where they still can't police you. This is ridiculous. Call the cops. They're harassing you. Check your peeping laws because this couple is unhinged. Exactly, OP. Next time the husband comes over, tell him you feel uncomfortable that his wife is watching you in your own home and yard. Then you can be nice about it and say you're sorry they have fertility issues, but point out that it's unreasonable to hide a child, and his wife could benefit from counseling, as well as some tall plants on her balcony, so she doesn't look in windows. My wife and son think I'm an idiot. My daughter is on my side, but I doubt my decision. I am someone who has money. I am not extraordinarily wealthy, but I am fairly secure financially. This has allowed me to support my son, Jake, 21, and my daughter, Darla, 30, as best I can. I paid for all of Darla's college education, her car, and contributed to the purchase of her house. I am currently paying for Jake's college. I bought his car. He lives in an apartment that I own, and in the future, I will help him buy his house. Jake has never had a job. I pay for absolutely everything. Jake met Tamara, 32, at a bar, and the rest is history. They've been dating for 9 months. They got engaged 2 weeks ago. Today I mentioned to Jake that I want Tamara to sign a prenup. I want everything I've given to Jake to stay with him in the event of a divorce and protect the few assets he has in his name. Jake got mad at me. He said that I was a pessimist for waiting for a divorce, that I surely wanted that because of Tamara's age. Wrong. Darla's husband also signed a prenup and is years older than her, that he is capable of making his own decisions, and that he will never divorce Tamara. My wife is equally angry with me. She says that women are always more vulnerable in a case of divorce, and that signing a prenup is bad luck. Yes, correct. But Tamara is a very successful woman in her professional field, and has repeatedly said that she will not be a stay-at-home parent, so she will not lose her job or salary. The only one who supports me is Darla. She says that I'm right and that Jake is unreasonable. Am I the idiot? Jake and my wife haven't spoken to me all day. Not the idiot. They haven't even been together for a year. She's 32 and he's 21. Why would a 32-year-old woman date a 21-year-old college student who can't support himself? Huge red flags. Refuse to help pay for a wedding and keep everything in your name. This is what I'm wondering as well. At 32, I had been a working professional for 10 years with a good job and had owned my own home for 5 years. I can't imagine I would have had any interest in a college student who was still dependent on daddy at that point in my life. I'm surprised Tamara doesn't want a prenup. Agree. Normally, I am against making such bold assumptions and think it's somewhat pretentious for people to require prenups. But holy smokes, OP's son is 21 and never had a job or been required to pay his way, and is marrying a much older woman with a solid career? What is she getting out of this potential marriage? I think there's more to this story. No idiots here. You are allowed to be concerned about where assets you've earned end up, but Jake is also allowed to get married without a prenup. Frankly, getting engaged at 21 after 9 months and freaking out when a prenup is mentioned doesn't inspire me with confidence about this marriage lasting, but I hope I'm wrong. I suggest you back off the prenup and reconsider your approach to financially assisting your son if you're worried about this. Look into trust, perhaps. You are the idiot. What assets does your son even have? It sounds like they're all OP's assets. The son has what, a car? Other than that, he has nothing his wife can get her hands on, even if they divorce. OP is paying for his college. Obviously, she can't get that. OP owns the apartment where perhaps son is living rent-free. She can't get that either. And OP plans to buy the son a house. Well, planning is one thing, doing is another. OP doesn't have to buy his son a house if he's afraid his son's wife will get it. OP is the idiot for stirring up trouble for no good reason. My grandfather passed away at the age of 97. 56 of those years were spent married to my grandmother, 90. Before that, my grandfather had a first marriage to another woman, and from that union they had a pair of twins, Stephen and Sean, both 77 male. My grandfather and his first wife divorced when the twins turned 18. My grandfather met my grandmother 3 years after her divorce. From the beginning of their relationship, neither of the twins accepted my grandmother. When my grandmother and grandfather got married, Stephen and Sean cut permanent contact with my grandfather. He always made attempts to contact them, but the twins always rejected him. My grandfather's funeral was held yesterday. My grandmother was inconsolable, and the whole family was absolutely destroyed. I, 19 male, was in charge of, so to speak, the door security, as the funeral home did not provide one. To my utter surprise, Steve and Sean showed up at the funeral with all their families, wives, children, and grandchildren. Neither my family nor I know any of these people, except for the twins. They showed up and asked to please come inside, but I didn't let them pass since my grandmother was inside. My reasoning is that, number one, the twins treated my grandmother horrible. and their absence tortured my grandfather all his life. My grandmother also resents herself terribly, since she thinks she is why the twins went no contact with Grandpa. I know that if my grandma were to see the twins, she would be devastated. Number 2, I don't think that someone who hasn't talked to my grandfather for more than half a century has the right to say goodbye to him. I offered to call them when my grandma left the place to pay their respects, but they refused. I also told them that if they could wait a few hours until most people left, I would let them come in, but they refused. Instead, they wanted to go inside now. In the end, they ended up leaving incredibly angry and super mad at me since I wouldn't budge. Somehow the twins' family found my social media, and now their children and grandchildren keep sending me messages about how I denied the twins the opportunity to make up for their mistake and say goodbye to the person they love the most. My father and uncle thanked me for trying to protect my grandmother, and they say they will defend me from anyone who speaks ill of my actions. But the twins' family's messages cut deep into me, and I feel like an idiot. Not the idiot. As much as they have some right to pay their respect to their father, say goodbye, etc., you offered it to them. You don't sound like you were being spiteful or vindictive or anything. You were protective of your elderly and distraught grandmother, while also somehow remaining respectful to these people who you don't have any reason to respect. It sounds like you handled this like a champ. Does anyone else think that the reason they wanted to go in there right then was that they wanted to say or do something to OP's grandmother and not say goodbye to their father one last time? It's suspicious that they wanted to go in right then, even when they knew that OP's grandmother was inside, a woman they couldn't stand. Either that was the reason, or to make them seem like good people in the eyes of everyone in their life. They also could be trying to see if there was a will and if they got anything in it. They had 50 years to make up for their mistake. His funeral is not the place to assuage their guilt. Maybe they should have tried while he was still alive and not insist on crapping all over his close family to do so. Well done, OP, for protecting your grandma on the most vulnerable day of her life. I hope one day I have a grandson that is half the man you grew up to be. Your grandfather would have been very proud. My 30 male, girlfriend 30, cannot drive. She did lessons over 3 years ago, hates driving and refuses to drive. She never took her test, so she doesn't have a driver's license. During Global Issue, she decided to stop working, and I mentioned to her that it would be great for her to use that time to practice driving and do her test. After 6 months where she never asked me to practice, I started pushing her to do some driving, and we started going. She would have a panic attack every time a car was behind her and forgot lots of rules of the road. She wasn't braking before getting to a roundabout, and whenever I said to her to brake, she'd get angry. I told her it'd be better to reach out to a professional and do more lessons and offer to pay for them. She never did, and asking her about it would cause issues, so I stopped. When she started looking for a job, she had to accept the only job easy to reach with public transport. After getting the job, she told me she'd never drive, and I told her that was okay, but I would not be driving her places anymore because she had years to start driving and chose not to. She now registered for dance classes, which have been her hobby forever, but the classes are 15 to 20 minutes away by car. I asked her how she would get there, and she said she'd need me to drive her. I refused to drive 15 to 20 minutes there and back, and have to repeat that an hour later 3 times a week. It screws up my evening. I did it pre-Global Issue because I thought it was temporary, but I would not be doing it forever. When I told her this, she said she didn't think I was serious about her driving, and that it was controlling to force her to drive when she didn't want to and when it made her anxious, and that it was even worse to force her to quit her hobby. There aren't any classes she can reach by public transport. I can understand anxiousness, but I've been driving her back and forth for the 4 years we're together and cannot keep doing this. If I keep doing it, she has no incentive to drive. So am I the idiot? Not the idiot. If she decides not to drive, she must also take the consequences. It's not your responsibility to get her everywhere she wants. She can still learn how to drive. If she doesn't want to, she won't benefit from having a car. So either get another hobby or find another way to get there. You are the idiot. Driving is a matter of life or death. So why do you force her to do something that causes her anxiety? You don't care about her mental health? Have you ever thought about getting her to therapy for this? It seems like she has extreme anxiety. Also, you could compromise and drive her maybe once a week. It's also a good idea to check if any other people at the dance studio live nearby so she can pool with them. He's not forcing her to drive, just stating he won't be her personal chauffeur, so he's actually doing her a favor by not enabling her. Now she can deal with her anxiety, hopefully with therapy. Plus, you just listed other options she has, so it's not like he's backing her into a corner. OP is not the idiot. This isn't controlling. This is being realistic. She needs to find alternative ways to manage her anxiety. And this issue, that doesn't include demanding everyone do this for her at her whim and fancy. If she's going to manage her anxiety by relying on others to drive her, she has to find things that work for those people's schedules. My girlfriend and I talk about getting engaged, and I wanted her to be happy with her engagement ring, so I took her to a local jeweler. She picked out a $2,600 ring with a lab-grown diamond, which thankfully was cheaper than the real thing, but it was still insanely expensive for a ring. We agreed on saving to retire early, but now she wants a crazy expensive ring. She told me she wants that one since it will be forever. She doesn't want to settle for a less nice ring. I tried to convince her to go for a cheaper ring and she wouldn't go for it. So I went back to the jeweler and the lady said they could do one with quartz for $1,200 less, so it would be $1,400. I thought that would be fine since it was exactly the same. So I proposed with the quartz ring, and she looked super happy and accepted. I didn't conceal that it was quartz, but I didn't tell her at the proposal either. If she wants to marry me with a ring that looks exactly the same, but with a different stone, it shouldn't be the deal breaker. Well, she lost some weight this summer and went back to the jeweler to get it refitted and found out from them that it wasn't a diamond. She was super angry and said I lied to her. I told her she got the receipt, but it didn't say the ring with diamond, and it was priced at $1,400. So did she think it was a diamond at that price? She said I totally overpaid for a quartz ring. I told her it was because she was pressuring me to get the style she wanted. I had to pay whatever the jeweler wanted for that ring style since I couldn't find it elsewhere. She has been extremely cold to me for the last few days. So am I the idiot here? You are the idiot, mostly for not telling her up front that it's a quartz ring and attempting to hide that. Also, $2,600 for a ring is not a lot for someone you want to marry and expect to be with for the rest of your life. You're willing to spend $1,000 on a phone that you will only use for 2 to 4 years. I'm assuming as that's what most people do, but you aren't willing to spend $2,600 on a ring for the love of your life, who will be wearing this for the rest of her life. You are the idiot. You pulled the old switcheroo. That's so messed up. If money was a concern, you should have set a budget beforehand. Instead, you let her pick, then tried to tell her no. So instead of admitting you wouldn't pay that much, you doubled down and bought a cheaper knockoff. Come on now, this is all on you. You are the idiot. Stones might look the same, but they aren't the same quality. Diamonds are way harder. She's going to be wearing this ring every day for hopefully the rest of her life, although she might want to reconsider that. That's pennies a day over time. $1,000 is not going to make a big difference in retirement. However, it is going to make a big difference in the quality/longevity of the ring, as well as her ability to trust you.